Israel's army and politicians have proposed a long-running occupation of the Palestinian enclave to eliminate the Palestinian radical group Hamas, the Financial Times wrote, citing sources. The plans for a renewed invasion were put forward by Eyal Zamir, the new chief of the Israeli General Staff, and supported by far-right politicians in Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet. The Financial Times broke the news as the Wall Street Journal reported that Israel is expanding its ground operations across the Gaza Strip. Netanyahu and his top aides believe that Israel must defeat Hamas on the battlefield before a political decision on Gaza is drafted, people familiar with the Israeli government's thinking told the newspaper. Defense Minister Israel Katz has made a similar claim in a video addressing Gaza's residents. He argued that Hamas is putting them at risk and said, if Hamas continues with its intransigence, it will pay heavy prices that get higher and higher through the taking of territory and taking out militants and terror infrastructure until its complete surrender. He called on the public to demand the removal of Hamas and the release of hostages. Western media reports came as rumors emerged that Israel is getting ready to incorporate the occupied Palestinian West Bank. This plan does not look realistic to Lyudmila Samarskaya, researcher at the Center for Middle East Studies at the Russian Academy of Sciences, Institute of World Economy and International Relations for humanitarian reasons, too. Ruslan Suleimanov, a Middle East expert, agrees that Israel would hardly venture any radical step in Gaza, given Israeli hostages are still in Palestinian captivity. Earlier, Hamas threatened to kill the remaining captives should the Israeli army launch a large-scale offensive in the enclave. For this would risk a protracted political crisis in the country. The expert added, Israeli control of the Gaza Strip would likely lead to increased radicalization of residents of the enclave. Ivan Bocharov, a program manager at the Valdai Discussion Club, told Vedomosti, this will not solve the Palestinian problem. On the contrary, this would give radical Palestinian movements more arguments to continue their fight against Israel. The terrorism-related risks would increase too, the expert said. According to him, furthermore, this would complicate the process of normalizing ties between Israel and Arab nations.
Geolocated footage from March 27 showed units of the 51st and 137th Airborne Regiments, which recently captured Gogolevka and the Sudza checkpoint. Analysts from the Institute for the Study of War have voiced the situation in the Kursk and Sumy regions over the past 24 hours. Thus, additional geolocated footage from March 25 showed the advancement of the Russian armed forces in the northeastern part of Basavka. Russian war correspondents also write about the advance of Putin's army to the southwest of Gogolevka, in the northern part of Gavo and towards Oleshnya. Also, the Russian armed forces allegedly captured a position of the Ukrainian armed forces in the area of Vladimirovka. Some Z-publics also write that the Ukrainian armed forces are holding their positions in Oleshnya and Gornal. At the same time, fighting continues in the area of Gogolivka, Oleshnya, Zuravka, Basavka, Veselovka and Vladimirovka. And Russian media write about a counterattack by Ukrainian forces in the area of Gavo. The Korean agency Yonhap reported that in the period from January to February, the DPRK transferred about 3,000 military personnel to the territory of the Russian Federation. Pyongyang also provided the Russian Federation with new ballistic missiles, self-propelled guns, and multiple rocket launchers. On March 26, the General Staff of Ukraine reported the destruction of the command post of the 9th Motorized Rifle Regiment in the area of Viktorovka and Uspanovka in the Kursk region. The commander of the 1st Battalion of the 9th Motorized Rifle Regiment went to Kobzon. Earlier, media reported that, despite the ceasefire, the Russian Federation continues to strike civilian and energy facilities in Ukraine. As a result of the strike of the Ukrainian Defense Forces on the Engels airfield, 96 Russian missiles were destroyed. The attack took place on the night of March 20th. This was reported by RBC Ukraine with reference to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. According to updated information, as a result of the strike by the Ukrainian Defense Forces on the Engels 2 airfield of the Russian Aerospace Forces on March 20, 2025, the enemy lost 96 air-launched cruise missiles. In particular, as a result of secondary detonation, the report says. As the General Staff clarified, the specified number of missiles was calculated to carry out 3 missile strikes during March-April of this year. Also, strikes on Russian aviation fuel storage sites resulted in the destruction of significant reserves, which negatively impacts the enemy's ability to support combat operations. Let us recall that on the night of March 20th, explosions thundered in the area of the Russian airfield Engels in the Saratov region, and a strong fire broke out there. Russians complained about the attack. The network reported that a weapons depot was attacked and that there were sounds of detonation in the area. The head of the Center for Preventive Action, Andrei Kovalenko, reported that after the attack on Engels, the Russians lost missiles, in particular the Kh-101 air-to-ground cruise missiles. RBC Ukraine sources reported that the attack on the Russian airfield was an operation by the SBU and the Special Operations Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The General Staff confirmed this. The internet assumed that Ukraine had allegedly struck the Engels with a domestic long Neptune missile. However, an aviation expert in a comment to the RBC Ukraine YouTube channel expressed the opinion that this was an exaggeration. Ukraine has struck 2 bridges in Russia's border Belgorod region with high-precision aviation bombs supplied to Kiev as part of military aid from Western partners. The struck facilities are Gryaznaya Bridge in Natazinka village and another bridge in Grafovka village. A video shared on Telegram app shows the moment of the strikes. However, there is no information about the exact date when the attacks were launched. Ukraine has stepped up attacks on Russia's strategic facilities. By destroying bridges, Ukrainian troops are trying to complicate logistics for the Russian army. Earlier on March 24, Ukrainian troops struck Belgorod region, demolishing a bridge and damaging a nearby gas pipeline.